Hello guys, welcome to a new video of Fischer series. Today look around number 6 of the Olympic finals of 1960. It's Fischer against Lasso Sabo, and in this game we see Fischer playing a perfect King's Indian with 99.2% accuracy. I can't wait to show you the game. Sabo has the white pieces and he starts with d4. Knight f6 by Fischer, c4, g6, knight c3, bishop g7 and e4. And here black usually plays d6 to prevent e5. But Fischer simply castles. He wants to provoke e5 here. Sabo doesn't bite. He plays bishop to g5, d6 and queen to d2. And here white actually has a little trick. If you play the normal move like e5, then we have pawn takes, queen takes, rook takes, and the very powerful knight to d5. You cannot take the knight. Well, you can, but then you're losing the rook. And we're also attacking this weak c7 pawn in which you win the rook. And if you try to save the knight, well, we have pawn takes, rook to b8 and long castles, and white's doing amazing here. So that's why Fischer doesn't play e5, he plays c5. And after d5, we have e6 by Fischer. As you can see, white has done nothing to his kingside development to castle, and Fischer really wants to open up the position. But after e6, we did weaken the d6 pawn, which is backwards now. So after bishop to d3, pawn takes, knight takes, and bishop to e6, the best move here is knight to c3 back, since we want to attack this backwards pawn with something like bishop to c2, rook to d1. We have two pieces then attacking this pawn, knight to b5, bishop to f4, and have a lot of pressure on this pawn. But Sabo probably wants to castle as well, so he plays knight to e2. And after knight to e2 we have bishop takes. Since after bishop takes and pawn takes d5, now this pawn is not so weak anymore. So after e takes d5 we have knight b to d7 by Fischer and castles by Sabo. Knight to e5. And in this position Fischer wants to take the d3 bishop, since probably he wants to expand on the queen side, but after a6, b5, the b5 square is defended twice by the bishop and the pawn, so we want to remove one defender. And here Sabo makes an interesting move. Usually white plays knight to c3 or rook to d1, but here he plays f4. And f4 is an interesting move, since we wanted to take the bishop anyway, and after queen takes, you weaken those dark squares around your king for no good reason. After queen takes we have h6 by Fischer, bishop to h4, rook to e8, bring the rook on the open file, rook a to e8, and queen to b6, attacking the weak b2 pawn. And here you can play b3, but Sabo probably didn't want the knight on e4, in which it controls a lot of squares here. And it's defended by the rook. So that's why he first takes the knight, and after bishop takes he still doesn't play b3 here. First f5. Fischer obviously doesn't take the pawn, since that would be really good for white, opening up the g file, attacking the bishop. So here he plays g5 and now b3 by Sabo. And here Fischer finds the best move, queen to a5. Why is queen to a5 such a strong move? Well, we're attacking this a2 pawn, which is backwards, but it's also attacking the rook. Well, how are we attacking the rook? It's defended by the other rook. Well, the problem here is that this knight is actually pinned, since we're attacking the rook twice now, and if you move the knight, then we win a rook for nothing. So the knight's actually pinned. So the best move here is actually queen to b1 back and defend this pawn. You cannot play a4 here, since after a4, black has a very powerful move. I would say try to pause the video here and find the best move for black. So after a4, we would have bishop d4 check, making use of this pin. And after king to h1, rook to e3. Now the queen has to go back. We double our rooks, and you can see visually already that this is just crushing for black. We would bring the queen, win this pawn, and white has no good moves. So that's why you cannot play a4 either. We have rook to c1. He wants to get out of the pin, but now simply queen takes a2. Rook to c2. And here Fischer finds a nice idea again. Rook to e3. If you take my queen, I will take your queen. And Sabo is a pawn down, so he wants to probably keep his queen here. He takes the rook on e3. Now after rook takes e3, we have queen takes c2. And black is still up a pawn. Here you cannot simply move the knight to g3 because then you're losing the queen. So first Sabo moves the king to h1. But Fischer is up a pawn, and now he can start marching on the queen side. a5. h4 by Sabo. He desperately tries to do something on the king side. And a4 by Fischer. And this is the moment Sabo had enough, since there's not much you can do. If you take the pawn, you will take this pawn. The a4 pawn is very weak. And even though you have this open file, you can actually not get in here. All the critical squares are defended, and black would just simply march his pawns forward and make another queen. This was such a beautiful game by Fischer, really outplaying his opponent without him making any huge mistakes. I would say f4 was the only big mistake here, but outside of that, Sabo didn't really make a huge mistake. So this was a beautiful game. I hope you liked this video. If so, please like, subscribe or comment. And I'll see you on the next video. Bye bye.